The American legal system provides a viable mechanism for initiating prosecution of high-level COVID crimes at the local level, even when the policies originated from federal or statewide authority. In the framework where these acts are designated as COVID treason, COVID murder, and COVID child abuse, all imprescriptible malum in se offenses, a single documented local victim creates jurisdictional nexus sufficient for a county or district court to act. This pathway allows law enforcement officers and local judges to challenge the accumulated immunities and legal shields that were prepositioned to protect the perpetrators. The process begins with concrete harm in the jurisdiction and builds upward through the documented chain of command. A local law enforcement officer, such as a sheriff's deputy or police detective, can compile evidence of a specific case in which a child in the county suffered death, permanent disability, or severe injury following enforcement of a vaccine mandate or related protocol. This local harm serves as the anchor. The officer gathers publicly available evidence linking the harm to broader policies. Video statements, congressional testimony, signed guidance, and internal communications from key figures who promoted or mandated the measures. The affidavit argues that these actions constitute state-level crimes such as reckless homicide, child endangerment, or official misconduct, while framing them within the event-specific designations of COVID murder and COVID child abuse. Because these are imprescriptible offenses, no statute of limitations applies, and the pre-planned nature of the immunities themselves is challenged as an aggravating element of the conspiracy. The officer presents this sworn affidavit to a local judge. The judge evaluates whether probable cause exists that a crime occurred within the county. In this framework, the judge can reject claims of PrEP Act immunity, qualified immunity, or emergency powers on the grounds that such protections cannot shield malum in se offenses involving premeditated harm to children or unconstitutional power grabs. If probable cause is found, the judge signs an arrest warrant. This warrant is valid statewide and can be executed through normal law enforcement channels, including extradition if the individual is located outside the state. The process requires no federal authorization. It operates through ordinary state criminal procedure triggered by local harm. Challenging immunities and building the coercion ladder. The local prosecution directly confronts the accumulated legal architecture that enabled the crimes. The affidavit argues that the PrEP Act, emergency declarations, sovereign immunity, and related precedents were strategically expanded and exploited as tools of the criminal enterprise rather than legitimate public health measures. This pre-planning of impunity, evidenced by decades of legislative adjustments and institutional coordination, becomes itself an element of the conspiracy. By anchoring the case in a concrete local victim, the prosecution establishes that the distant policy decisions produce tangible criminal results within the court's jurisdiction, overriding claims that the acts were purely national in character. Once the warrant is issued and the individual is arrested and extradited, the case proceeds to formal proceedings. Star chamber-style trials, with their focus on the self-evident public record, provide an efficient mechanism for judicial affirmation of guilt. The local jury, drawn from a community that experienced the harms directly, evaluates the evidence in light of the specific injury to one of its children. Successful prosecution at this level creates precedent and momentum. It demonstrates that immunities can be pierced when applied to radical evil and encourages parallel actions in other jurisdictions. Lower-level participants, previously coerced, gain incentive to cooperate and provide further evidence against higher coercers, building the responsibility ladder from the local victim upward to federal and institutional leaders. This bottom-up approach complements the top-down identification of primary COVID criminals. While high-profile federal figures are prioritized for their visible role in coordination and public advocacy, local cases supply the jurisdictional foundation and human cost that make abstract policy crimes concrete. The dual strategy ensures that the full hierarchy of coercion is addressed without requiring centralized permission. Each successful local warrant and conviction weakens the protective network and exposes additional layers of pre-planning and complicity. Strategic and perpetual nature of local accountability. The replication of this process across multiple jurisdictions creates a decentralized yet coordinated wave of accountability. Different counties, each with their own documented victims, can pursue parallel cases against the same individuals using overlapping public evidence. This multiplies pressure on the targets while preventing any single point of failure or dismissal on jurisdictional grounds. The imprescriptible status of the offenses ensures that timing is irrelevant. Cases can be brought whenever sufficient local evidence emerges. The framework treats the prepositioned immunities not as valid defenses but as evidence of intent. The very existence of broad liability shields, emergency powers expansions, and no-fault compensation programs demonstrates foreknowledge that the policies could produce widespread harm. When local prosecution challenges these shields successfully, it dismantles the legal architecture that was engineered to enable the crimes. This process aligns with the event-specific jurisprudential model by recognizing that COVID treason, COVID murder, and COVID child abuse transcend ordinary policy disputes and demand perpetual accountability. The local pathway therefore serves both practical and symbolic purposes. It grounds national-scale crimes in the lived experience of specific communities and restores the principle that no level of authority or pre-planned protection can place individuals above the law when they commit radical evil. By starting with concrete local harm and building upward through documented chains of command, the mechanism ensures systematic justice that matches the scale and coordination of the offenses. Conclusion. Local prosecution offers a constitutionally grounded and practically accessible route to holding COVID criminals accountable. A single officer, a documented local victim, and a judge willing to pierce abused immunities can initiate the process through a standard arrest warrant. This approach directly challenges the pre-planned legal shields and brings the full weight of imprescriptible crimes, COVID treason, COVID murder, and COVID child abuse, to bear in jurisdictions where the harms occurred. The strategy scales naturally across the country as additional victims and evidence emerge, creating a decentralized wave of accountability that complements high-level identification of primary coercers. It leverages the public record, the hierarchical nature of the response, and the self-evident connection between national policies and local suffering. The ongoing, perpetual character of this process ensures that no participant, regardless of prior protections or current status, remains permanently beyond reach. This local pathway upholds the foundational principle that justice begins where the harm occurred. By anchoring accountability in the concrete suffering of individuals within specific jurisdictions, the framework delivers both immediate justice and long-term systemic correction, restoring constitutional order and moral balance after the widespread crimes of the COVID response.